Okay, Craig. Let's talk about in general, from front to back, the nuts and bolts of the car. What you guys are going to be looking for. Again, I keep referring back to the technical standards and the scrutineering checklist because I think it's extremely important before the teachers and the teams bring the car that they understand those and have some idea of what you're looking for. So again, let's just kind of walk through the car and tell us what you're going to be looking for.
Okay. Last year we had a number of cars come to their first tech inspection, and basically things were loose. Bolts weren't tightened, lock nuts weren't tightened to where they should be, wheels were not tightened. So we spent a lot of time going through the car at a very elemental level. And maybe that's what we'll do here. When you look at a wheel, for instance, you want your wheel here to spin easy, but you don't want it to have a lot of play. This wheel's fine, but that's achieved by tightening it down here with this nut on the outside. When you look at your connections in here, we found a number of connectors that were loose. They weren't tightened down, and
let me interject, because especially on the electrical and some of these, this could be to the detriment of the team performance, right? And I say that in the sense of, you know, if you have one of your wires come disconnected, your car's not running, correct? So
or it's going to go intermittent and shut on and off.
So again, we're talking about performance. You're not running at your maximum performance unless these things are taken into consideration, correct?
Exactly.
And you were talking about, you mentioned a lock nut. What exactly is a?
Well, let's go to the front.
Let's go to the front.
Bring me
Explain to them about a lock nut, and I noticed these, and most of the cars are coming with a nylon lock nut.
These are what they call nylocks.
Right.
Nylon lock nuts, which they prevent this nut from backing out. It's used in place of a lock washer.
Right.
And it's much simpler to use. So what you're really doing is just tightening this up, and it's hard to do it at this thing here, but you want this tightened up so it doesn't prevent movement. You'll have a little bit of movement in here, but you want this snugged up rather than just sitting out on the end where everything's loose and the bolts moving back and forth. When you talk about a lock nut, on your heim joints, they all have a locking nut, a jam nut as it's called here, which once you make your adjustment, you tighten this up to prevent any further movement of that heim joint. You've got lock nuts as well here in your steering, jam nuts, if you would, again, in your steering system here and on both ends of all these rods. Right. Again, that's to keep inadvertent movement and loosening and things changing while you're driving.